After everything we've all experienced over the last year, how do you think bottled fits into a pandemic/post-pandemic world?
I think we've got a real opportunity to shift our opinion of mental health and mental ill health even further than we have done already. Over the past decade or decade since I've been at school, there has been a huge seismic shift in how we view mental health and how we validate mental ill health. And that's brilliant. But we have a real opportunity with this group of children who have experienced such loss and change and worry and difficulty. We have the opportunity to show them how resilient they are, show them that those experiences won't define them, but they will have an impact on how they feel and how they navigate life. And so it can be so easy, I think, for us to ignore emotions or to try and brush them under the carpet. And for the past 2 years, we've just not been able to do that. And for a lot of people, maybe for the first time, they've found themselves at a point where they can't bottle it anymore. They've got to talk to somebody. And if we can help children to see that the point of overflowing bottles or the point of smashing bottles open, that's where things get dangerous for them. That's where things are harmful. That's where things end up either hurting themselves or the people around them. And actually pouring out of your bottle to those that you trust and love, that's a far more powerful, emotionally honest and beneficial way of sharing what's going on inside your head.
And in the kind of education world at the moment, so much of the rhetoric we hear is around children catching up or schools trying to re-establish routines, re-establish their school culture. But actually, I view it as kind of an opportunity for a fresh start in the way that Tom said. So rather than trying to race back to the way we ran things before in schools and in relationships generally, let's take a moment to pause and think, what have we learned during this time? And I think that certainly in terms of education, working with young people, we've learned which skills are really important for children. And we've learned that community is important and empathy is important and being able to navigate your emotions and kindness is important. And those connections, this kind of, this last year of our lives has shown us how important the kind of messages within Bottled are. So it's a chance when schools re-establish themselves for hopefully a full kind of uninterrupted year of education for the first time in 2 years in September, for schools to think about how are they putting those core values that we've all learned matter during this time, how are they putting those at the heart of their school communities and in the hearts of their classrooms?
Generic discussions just don't cut it when you've been through a global pandemic. You've got to address these issues with children in a way that actually they can relate to. In many ways, just how me and Joe didn't experience mental ill health till our mid-20s at a close level, these children have had an experience that we can't brush under the carpet and that we do need to address. And hopefully Bottled goes some way to doing that, to helping those children to see that being kind to yourself by helping to share those emotions with those that you love and trust, that's one of the best things you can do.
Yeah, as you say, and as Joe said as well, it's really creating that culture in and outside of the classroom. And I was just about to say kindness to others, but also to yourself, particularly after what we've all experienced the past 18 months or so. Both are equally as important now more than ever.
That for me is kind of where Bottled is more than just a book, and it's actually kind of a way of working with children and a way of it's a way to establish a culture, because the messages that come through Bottled and through that book, I don't want any teacher or any adult to read Bottled to their class and never talk about it afterwards. It's a book that should, alongside a number of other great picture books which help you to talk about emotions in your class, it's about establishing that culture where you are building an emotionally honest space for the children in your care. And And that's why I'm so excited about kind of our work with you and the work that you've been doing around Bottled, because it allows children and young people to unpick the messages a little bit more and to think a little bit more deeply about, actually, if we value emotional honesty, if we see that we all have these emotions and there is beauty within all of them, if we know how to navigate them in a healthy way, how is that actually going to change our behavior towards ourselves, but our behavior towards other people? I want children to kind of read the book and take those messages and change their behavior as a result of it.
I'm pushing you on this, Joe. Beauty in all emotions. What does that look like? How do you explain to a child that anger can be beautiful?
What I mean by beauty in all emotions is that every emotion that we feel is a natural part of being a human. The emotions that we feel aren't isolated things to ourselves. We've all felt upset. We've all felt angry. All of these different emotions that children experience, the majority of them are things that we all experience. And sometimes with the way that emotions are discussed in school, children are led to believe that there are good emotions and there are bad emotions. There's kind of this binary between the emotions we should be talking about and admitting that we feel, and the emotions that aren't great and we shouldn't talk about. So when I say there's beauty in all emotions, I suppose what I mean to say is that I don't think that binary exists between good emotions and bad emotions. There are just emotions, and we experience all of them. There are some of them that might be preferable, and there are things that we can do to try and feel those things more often and avoid the ones that are more uncomfortable for us. But I don't want any child to think that they can't talk about sadness, or that sadness is a bad emotion for them.
More sort of, there aren't ugly emotions. That kind of, so you haven't got, an emotion might be uncomfortable, but it's not unwelcome.
You've said before that you've been moved by individuals' responses to your book. Can you talk a bit more about that and how it's maybe impacted you in your Bottled journey so far?
Maybe just over a year ago, me and Joe sat down before Bottled was anything other than notes on our phone. And we said, are we really going to go for this and trust that people will see the value in this work? And I doubted it all the way. We were unsure what support we would receive and where that support would come from. To say that we've been overwhelmed is an understatement. And every pledge is really, really gratefully received and shows that we're building a community of people. And so we're so grateful to everybody who's made this book a reality. But I think for me personally, and maybe Joe, you would differ on this, I don't know, but to hear firsthand people who have been impacted, sometimes in devastating ways, by mental ill health, and to see that they recognise that a book like this on a shelf in their home or a shelf in their school might make a difference. For me and Joe, that is something that we can only hope will happen. And for those people who have kind of come forward in support financially and on social media and just supported the project, I can't begin to thank people enough for that support, because we truly do believe in this project, and we truly do believe that this book will help young people to navigate their emotions in an honest and more helpful way, and to know that this is something that's supported by over 700 people up and down the country as well it's mind-blowing. It really is.
A question we have to ask: what was your initial reaction to the idea of a Bottled and Aulus Duo collaboration?
Tom's kind of mentioned where Bottled came from for us, and it's a really personal thing. It's a really personal story, and it means so much to us personally. So we are naturally quite protective over the story and over Bottled as a book, because of that kind of personal connection, but also because Tom said it's from his NQT year. We're kind of 5 years in now to this journey of writing this book together. So it's something that we're really protective over. So I guess anything that you're protective over, you're always nervous about someone else kind of taking that on. from the first conversation that we had, and this won't be a surprise to you because I've said it to you so many times, it means so much to me, and I'm sure Tom feels the same, to work with people who completely understand the vision for this book, and why we think it's important is the same reasons that you think it's important and want to engage with it as well. And just from that initial conversation where you shared your ideas, and so many of your ideas of how we can unpick the messages from this book overlapped with Tom and I's ideas. At the time, I just, even from that first conversation, I was so confident in both of you and in the work that you would do to kind of take something that we really love and that we're really protective of, but actually take it further and achieve more with it. So I felt really positive about it, and kind of always have since we met.
And I'd just say that since then, what's been particularly encouraging to me and Joe, and something that I know that we've commented on to one another, is that you're doing the work, and not just the work of putting together a program of stuff that's linked to a book that you think is going to be good. It's doing the work of actually reflecting on how emotionally honest you are, and how you talk about your mental health and your experiences. And I think that comes shining through. It will be easier for you to pick up a project and use it as an inspiration, not to use it as a tool for thinking about your own life as well. And what's lovely is that it's very clear that you guys see Bottled as an opportunity for you to reflect on how you live your lives in emotionally honest ways, which is absolutely what me and Joe would hope it does for a lot of people.
I think the other thing to say as well is that because of the way that Bottled has become a reality through the crowdfunding and with our partnership with Unbound, what was once kind of me and Tom's book isn't anymore. It is a book of all of those 700 people plus who have chosen to support it and to make it a reality and see the value in it. And you two are a huge part of that. So kind of my head now, I don't view it as our book, Tom. I view it as our book, the four of us, and everyone else that has agreed to kind of support the book and to make it a reality.
That's why it's everyone's names in the back, because they're all a part of telling that story just as much as we are.
That's all amazing to hear. I could definitely tear up a little bit, getting the hairs on my arm to standing up. We've said so many times that we are so grateful to both of you for how you've supported us and run with our ideas and really trusted us, I suppose, with your book child, really, it really is become a passion project of ours as well, as you know. As we've said again, it's become such a part of who we are and our lives. I actually think it's no shorthand to say that it has changed my life completely. I've said that, outreach is a big passion of mine, and you never know what project it's going to be until the idea happens. And, I had no idea that this exact avenue, emotional honesty was where that would lead me, but I'm so glad that it has. And we probably even have a different friendship, Georgina, and how we approach each other. Again, we've said it before, with the book than we would have had without that. Yeah. I just think it's pure magic, really.
It's been amazing for us because, you've heard us talk about it before as well, but the fact that we both moved and didn't really know anybody here in Cardiff, it's been quite a big part of all of that side of things too. So yeah, really meaningful from many different sort of avenues.
What you've just said, both of you, means so much to me, because that's exactly how I feel about Bottled. When we started on this journey of emotional honesty, I see it a little bit as before the book and before we had these conversations about emotional honesty and we started this work, it's a little bit like being in a room where there's a door that you believe is locked because everyone tells you it is. Everyone tells you not to talk about those things. That door's locked, don't go through it. But actually, I feel like I opened that door and it had never been locked. And when you open it, there's a whole world of kind of conversations that make your friendships more meaningful, make your relationships with colleagues more meaningful, and bringing emotional honesty into kind of all of the relationships and all of the spaces that I kind of occupy. Like you said, Ellie, has really kind of changed my life and my relationships with other people.
So that brings us nicely to our last question. If you could summarise your Bottled experience in 3 words, as difficult as that may be, what would they be?
I think for me, I feel like I'm going to say 3 words and then explain the 3 words, which kind of cheats the question, so sorry. But I feel like for me, it's about reflection, community, and hope. Writing the book and building the book together with Tom required me to reflect a lot on my own emotional honesty and on my own relationship with my mental health. And then when we had the book and we started to crowdfund through Unbound, that community and the people who supported us means so much to Tom and I, that it does feel like a kind of a community that's built this book together. And then the last word I said was hope, because I've seen what these kind of conversations can do in a classroom and in a school and for particular children. And I'm really hopeful that what I've seen happen in the classrooms that I've worked in happens in all the classrooms of the people who have supported the book when they get their copy.
I think my 3 words would be acceptance, trust, and healing. I think it takes a lot to accept that difficult feelings are going to come your way. It takes even more to trust that those feelings matter and to find people who you trust to share them with. And it takes even more to stop bottling those feelings up, to acknowledge them, to talk about them, and to get to a stage where difficult feelings can be overcome, where you can heal from the hurt that you've experienced, and you can learn to share what you've learned with others, in the hope that when we come together, we're honest about how we're feeling, we have a real power for good.
Thank you so much for joining us for this week's video. We think you're incredible and 2 of the most inspiring and kind people that I've ever met. And I think I can speak for the both of us and say that we're so grateful for all the work that you do and the fact that you're now in our lives. And hopefully at some point we'll be able to see each other in person. That would be brilliant.
That would be brilliant.
Definitely.
Thank you so much.